A huge thank you to patron Matthias Kullerstedt for suggesting today's video topic. If you want to suggest a topic for next Wednesday's Name Explain video, all you have to do is support Name Explain on Patreon for $1 a month. Find out more by visiting patreon.com/nameexplain, which will be linked down below. Anyway, of all the film and television genres out there, soap operas are usually looked down upon as the lowest of the low, often seen as lazily produced hyperbolic nonsense, created as bread and circuses for the masses. Yet in all honesty, I don't think that's entirely fair. The production of soap operas is an incredible feat. They amount to basically never-ending stories, unless they get cancelled, featuring countless characters over their runtime, each with their own stories which can interweave between one another. On top of this, most soap operas air brand new episodes multiple days of the week. Some even have episodes pretty much every day of the week, and usually without any kind of season break. The art of writing, recording, and producing that much content is amazing unto itself, though I'm a pretty big pro wrestling fan, so maybe I'm just admiring it from that perspective. Plus, I have to pump out like 3 videos a week too, so I understand the pressure they're under to make new content. Whatever the case, making so much content and keeping it fresh on such a regular basis is nothing short of amazing in my eyes. Maybe I've dived in too quickly, however. We all know what a soap opera is, right? They are shows for either TV or radio which usually depict the events of fairly ordinary people. They can be set in a hospital, a farm, or even just a street, or centre around a local pub or something. And while the characters in them tend to be fairly ordinary, the events they experience are far from that. Soap operas tend to have incredibly dramatic storylines involving death, adultery, and all kinds of other shocking events. They tend to be wonderfully melodramatic, with edge-of-your-seat cliffhangers, complex relationships between all the players, and the stories within them tend to be told over weeks or even months to keep you watching. Seriously, they are so much like pro wrestling. Popular US soap operas include the likes of General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, and The Young and the Restless. Here in the UK, Coronation Street, EastEnders, and The Archers on the radio reign supreme. And of course there's the quintessentially Australian Neighbours, which I'm sure every Australian ever has been on at least once. They're easy to mock, but millions of people around the world tune into some kind of soap opera most nights of the week to see how the characters they are so invested in are doing. Soap operas have become a mainstay on modern television, along with sitcoms, other dramas, and never-ending celebrity panel shows. We're so used to talking about soap operas that we kind of forget just how odd that name is. In a vacuum, these two words mean very different things. Soap is a product that exists in either bar or liquid form, and is what we use to clean ourselves and other things like dishes, though probably don't use the same soap for both these things. Opera, on the other hand, is a kind of live performance where the entire production is sung out in that mighty operatic style. Neither of these things really relate to the idea of watching Phil Mitchell and his antics down the pub, so how did they get applied to one of the most popular genres of TV and radio out there? Well, this genre name wasn't formed in tandem with the genre itself, but the term got applied to these kinds of shows fairly quickly after their creation. Soap operas are the products of the radio, which then migrated over to television. While all kinds of people watch soap operas today, they were initially created for one group of people: women, specifically stay-at-home housewives of the early 20th century who would spend their days cooking and cleaning. I'm sure we all know this stereotype, and once again, while it's easy to poke fun at being a housewife, it is undoubtedly a full-time job, and an unpaid one at that. It was these women who would often have the radio or television on as they went about their day. Someone somewhere realised that these women, with their radios blown away as they cleaned, were a huge potential market, and wanted to craft a show that they would love, which could feature adverts for something they would definitely buy. And the people who realised this first were the advertising agencies for the cleaning, toiletry, and food industry. These companies decided to not only advertise on the radio to housewives, but to directly get involved with the production and making of the shows their products would be advertised during. They crafted the perfect stories for these stay-at-home women, filled with drama and infidelity. And once these women were hooked, they could cut straight to the adverts and tell them about their amazing products that they would need to buy. This, among many other things, included soap. This is simply because these women spent a lot of their day cleaning, so soap was seen as important to them by advertisers. This is where the soap part of the name comes from, as they were designed initially to sell people soap. This is pretty much the exact same tactic Transformers, He-Man and the like would do in the 80s. Make TV shows aimed directly at their specific market, children in this case, and then fill the adverts with the toys of their dreams. This might sound really sketchy to manipulate children like this, and honestly it is, but Reagan made it legal in the 80s. It's a whole thing. interesting. A radio series called Painted Dreams is generally regarded as the first ever soap opera, emanating from the USA, and it started in the year 1930. And it seems that pretty soon after its release, the idea of calling them soap operas caught on pretty quickly, as the earliest evidence the OED has of the term soap opera dates to 1938, and while this is the earliest written evidence of the term, it was probably being said out loud prior to this. Soap operas made their switch from just radio to TV and radio in 1949 with the release of These Are My Children. While soap operas are more linked with TV today, I feel that their origin on radio really helps us understand the name a lot more. Radio is a lot more passive in its consumption. You can easily be listening to a show while doing chores or something, as opposed to watching TV where you kind of have to be sat watching it to fully take it on board. This is reflected in advertising too. Even to this day, radio advertising is very influential, as many people just hear it in the background. It's why radio jingles can stay in your head for so long. But anyway, this means that when they arrived on TV, their name was cemented as soap operas. And despite how odd the soap part of the name is, it kind of makes a lot of sense. The opera part, on the other hand, now that's a bit weird. The term opera has its origins in the Latin word of opera, but in Latin it was more a verb meaning to work or put effort in. It's easy to understand how this word meaning effort got applied to operas as we know them today, as a traditional opera looks like a huge amount of effort to rehearse, sing, produce, and even watch for some audience members. Operas and their bellowing performances are seen as the height of polite society. Going to the opera is seen as the stereotypical event of choice for the posh and snooty like Fraser Crane and his brother in example. It's kind of ironic that this term got linked with soap operas, which are often seen on the other end of the sophistication spectrum, but once again, I don't think that's fully warranted. While they seem worlds apart, opera operas and soap operas have one thing in common, and that's the drama. Traditional operas are incredibly dramatic affairs. They often involve groups of people arguing over wild events around them, albeit on a stage as opposed to in a pub. But it's because of this similarity as to why the term opera got applied to soap operas too. Opera has kind of become a synonym for melodrama as a whole. In fact, the term opera has been applied to another genre too, that being space operas. Space operas tend to be big, epic, dramatic stories with a space or futuristic backdrop. Think of the likes of Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and of course, Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars isn't actually sci-fi, well, according to some anyway. What genre Star Wars fits into is a whole debate unto itself, but Lucas himself even referred to it as a space opera, so that's good enough for me. At some point, someone should really make a space soap opera. Ken Barlow in space, man, I'd watch that. Tangent aside, from their creation in the 1930s, soap operas have stuck around, and even while they no longer exist to just sell soap, the name has become deeply linked with them. Many people even just call them soaps. They're beloved even outside the English-speaking world. Many other nations have their own versions of soap operas, though there's often arguments over what a true soap is. Some are seen as just dramas, as they don't have some of the classic elements of soaps, like big cliffhangers and the such. A more catch-all term for these shows would be drama serials, with a serial being a kind of show which tells one big narrative over its run, as opposed to smaller stories each episode. Things like Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones, and Squid Game are serials, while many sitcoms like The Office are just episodic. Of all the soap-like shows across the world, the most well-known are probably the telenovelas of Latin America. These two are highly dramatic shows that follow crazy stories. In fact, their stories are so crazy they are often parodied in other films and shows. The name simply means television novel, and this is actually really reflective of how they are produced. One of the big differences between soap operas and telenovelas is the fact that the latter are produced with an end goal in mind, and tend to focus on just one story, as opposed to soap operas which go on forever and cover all kinds of stories. The average telenovela is on for just a year or so. This is really different to soaps, as many English speakers know them. If anyone can recommend a good telenovela to watch or a good underappreciated soap, let me know down below please. Though, like soap operas, telenovelas really are an art unto themselves. Though I honestly think the coolest thing about the name soap operas is the fact you can make the word soap from the letters of the word opera. Honestly, I noticed that while making this video, and I just thought it was pretty neat. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm Name Explain YT, and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.